My dear child, stop whatever you are doing right now and just listen. Not because something bad is about to happen, but because something truly important is trying to reach you. You did not land here by accident. You did not just randomly press play on this video. Something much deeper brought you here. Something that knew you needed to hear exactly this at exactly this moment in your life. So please, do not treat this lightly. Do not let this play while you scroll through something else. Sit with me. Stay with me. Give this moment the attention it deserves, because what I am about to say matters. You know that feeling you get sometimes late at night or in a quiet moment during a busy day when everything goes still and a small voice inside you whispers, "Is this really the life I am supposed to be living?" You quickly push that feeling away. You go back to your phone, your work, your routine. You tell yourself you are just tired or overthinking. But that feeling keeps coming back, doesn't it? It comes back in the shower. It comes back when you are driving alone. It comes back in those few seconds before sleep takes over. That is not anxiety. That is not weakness. That is not your imagination running wild. That is God, the creator of the universe, reaching into your chest and gently knocking on the door of your heart. He has something to say to you. And today, right now, in this very moment, he is saying it. He sees you. He really does. He sees the way you rush from one responsibility to the next without ever truly catching your breath. He sees the smile you put on for the world while carrying something heavy and unspoken inside. He sees the nights when you stare at the ceiling, wondering why life feels so hollow even when nothing is technically falling apart. He sees the quiet exhaustion that lives behind your eyes, the kind that rest does not fully fix because it is not just your body that is tired. It is your soul. He has been watching you with the kind of eyes that only a loving father has, eyes full of patience, full of understanding, and full of a love so deep that it refuses to let you drift any further without stepping in. And today, he is stepping right into your path. Think about your average day for a moment. You wake up, you check your phone before you even say good morning to yourself. You move through your tasks, you respond to people, you manage what needs managing. From the outside, your life looks perfectly functional, maybe even impressive, but somewhere deep inside, in a place you rarely visit, there is a quiet space that has been waiting for something solid, something real, something steady enough to hold your full weight. When everything else feels uncertain, you have been looking for that steadiness in all kinds of places, in achievements, in relationships, in keeping yourself busy enough that the deeper questions do not have time to surface. But it keeps slipping through your fingers, doesn't it? That is, because the steadiness you are searching for does not live in any of those places. It lives in alignment with the one who created you and knows exactly what you were made for. God is not interrupting your life today to burden you with more pressure. He is stepping into your path because he loves you far too much to watch you keep wandering in circles when he already knows the way out. He is not speaking loudly to scare you. He is speaking closely, the way a father leans in when something truly important needs to be heard. And what he wants you to understand more than anything else right now is this: you are not here by accident. This moment is not random, and the unrest you feel inside is not a problem to be fixed. It is an invitation to be answered. So before we go any further, I want to ask you to do just one thing. Lower your guard. You do not need to have everything figured out before you receive what is being offered to you right now. You do not need to pretend you are fine. You do not need to edit yourself or soften your reality. Just come as you are, tired, questioning, searching, hopeful. Whatever you are carrying, bring all of it. Because what is waiting for you on the other side of this conversation is something your soul has been hungry for longer than you probably realize. Now, let us talk about something you rarely admit out loud. You have been strong for so long that you have actually forgotten what it feels like to not have to hold everything together. Strength became your identity somewhere along the way. You became the person who handles things, the person who shows up, the person who does not fall apart. And on one level, that is genuinely beautiful. But on another level, it has quietly cost you something. Because when strength becomes your only mode, you stop allowing yourself to be helped. You stop admitting when you are depleted. You start confusing endurance with health and pushing through with maturity. And slowly, without even realizing it, you begin to run on empty. Here is the truth that God wants you to sit with today. Endurance without intimacy with Him eventually becomes exhaustion. You were never designed to survive on willpower alone. You were designed for something deeper. You were made for connection, for closeness with the one who knows every layer of who you are and loves every single one of them. When you cut yourself off from that connection, even partially, even gradually, the strength you thought you had starts to feel hollow. You are doing all the right things, but feeling none of the right peace. That gap between what you are doing and what you are feeling is not a mystery. It is a signal. It is your soul telling you that something important has been missing. So right now, in this moment, God is asking you to stop performing. Stop holding it together for the sake of appearances. Stop pretending that the weariness is not real. Admit it. Say it plainly, even if only in your own heart. I am tired. I have been tired for a long time, and I need something more than just surviving. There is no shame in that. In fact, there is enormous freedom in it, because the moment you stop pretending, the moment you drop the act and come to God honestly, that is the moment real restoration can begin. He is not impressed by how long you can go without breaking down. He is moved when you choose to lean into Him, instead of always leaning only on yourself. He wants your authentic self, not your curated version. He wants your raw truth, not your polished presentation. Bring Him the mess. Bring Him the confusion. Bring Him the exhaustion and the doubt and the questions you are too afraid to say out loud. He can handle all of it. He has been waiting for all of it. You have told yourself many times that things will calm down eventually, that there will come a season where responsibilities lighten, where your mind finally gets a break, where clarity just naturally arrives. But if you are honest with yourself, that calm has not come, and it will not come on its own. Life does not pause to give you time to recover. If you do not intentionally choose rest and renewal, you will keep cycling through the same pattern of exhaustion and brief relief over and over, wondering why nothing ever truly changes. God is inviting you out of that cycle today, not someday. Today, He is offering you something more sustainable than the life you have been living. He is offering you a peace that does not depend on your circumstances being perfect, a steadiness that does not require you to control everything, a direction that does not demand constant anxiety to maintain. But receiving that offer requires one thing from you. You have to stop running long enough to actually receive it. Create space, even just a little. Turn off the noise. Sit quietly, not with an agenda, not with a to-do list, not with a prayer that sounds more polished. Just sit. Be still. Let God meet you in the stillness. He will restore clarity where confusion has been living. He will strengthen resolve where doubt has been creeping in. He will breathe life back into parts of you that have felt dry and worn thin for far too long. But you have to come willingly. You have to choose stillness over constant stimulation. And in a world that rewards busyness, that choice takes real courage. Let me say something now that might feel a little uncomfortable, but that you need to hear. There was a time, maybe not too long ago, when your awareness of God felt closer, more immediate. You sensed His presence more easily. You talked to Him with simplicity, without rehearsing what to say. You trusted Him more naturally. And then, quietly, without any single dramatic moment of decision, the distance began to form. It did not happen because you made a choice to walk away. It happened gradually, almost invisibly, the way a slow leak drains a tire. Life got louder. Responsibilities multiplied. Disappointments accumulated. And one by one, small adjustments were made. A prayer that got shorter, a moment of reflection that got skipped, a decision made without pausing to ask for guidance. None of those moments felt significant on their own, but together, over time, they created a gap between where you were and where you are now. You still believe. You still carry faith in your heart, but your reliance on God has become partial instead of central. You bring Him the big things and handle the everyday things mostly on your own. You include Him in emergencies, but forget to include Him in ordinary moments. And that partial connection, though better than none, has left you feeling spiritually dry in ways you cannot always explain. God is not angry about any of that. He is not standing at a distance waiting for you to earn your way back. He has been near the entire time. The distance was never in His presence. It was in your awareness. He never stepped away. He never reduced His attention toward you. He was there in every moment you felt alone. He was there in every question you asked without expecting an answer. He was there in every quiet night when your heart ached for something you could not even name. He was always right there, and He is right here now. You do not need a grand spiritual moment to return to closeness with Him. You do not need to travel somewhere special or perform some elaborate ritual. You just need to turn your attention back. That is all. Just shift your focus. Invite him into your day deliberately. Before you make a decision today, pause and ask for his wisdom. When an emotion rises, bring it to him immediately instead of processing it alone in the dark. When something good happens, stop and express genuine gratitude instead of rushing past it. These small, consistent acts of turning toward him will gradually dissolve the distance that formed gradually. Closeness is rebuilt the same way it was lost, one small moment at a time. Now I want to talk about something that many people carry but very few people name honestly: fear. Not the dramatic kind that makes you freeze in place, not the kind that announces itself loudly. The quiet kind, the subtle kind, the kind that dresses itself up in respectable clothes and calls itself caution, prudence, wisdom. The kind that has been gently steering your decisions from the background for longer than you realize. You prefer calculated steps. You rehearse conversations in your head before having them in real life. You want clarity before you make a commitment and assurance before you take a step. And when those conditions are not met, you wait. You tell yourself you are being careful. You tell yourself you are just not ready yet. But underneath all of that careful, reasonable language, something else is operating. Something that is afraid of what might happen if you truly let go. Something that is afraid of being wrong. Something that is afraid of the vulnerability that comes with full trust. God sees that fear clearly, and he is not disappointed in you for having it. Fear is a deeply human response to a world that has not always been safe. Life has taught you to protect yourself, and some of that protection has been necessary. But protection becomes a prison when it keeps you from moving into the life God designed for you. When fear holds the steering wheel of your decisions, your future quietly shrinks. When trust holds the steering wheel, your future begins to expand in ways you could not have planned or predicted. Here is something important to understand about courage. Courage does not mean you feel no fear. Courage means you choose to move anyway. It means you feel the uncertainty and take the step regardless. It means you say, I do not know exactly how this will turn out, but I trust the one who does, and that is enough. That kind of courage does not come from being naturally fearless. It comes from a relationship with God that is strong enough to make his faithfulness feel more real than your fear. Where has fear been shaping your pace lately? Where has it kept you from a bold decision that you knew in your heart was right? Where has it dressed itself up as wisdom when it was actually avoidance? Be honest with yourself about that. You cannot overcome what you refuse to name. Bring those fears to God by name. Say them out loud. Do not soften them with spiritual language. Just say, I am afraid of this. I am afraid of that. Let him meet you in that honesty. Because when you stop hiding your fears and start bringing them to the light, they begin to lose their power over you. Take one small step today that stretches your comfort. Speak a truth you have been keeping quiet. Make a decision that is aligned with your convictions rather than your comfort. Do something that requires you to trust God with the outcome rather than controlling it yourself. You do not have to leap off a cliff. Just take one honest step forward and notice how he meets you there. And speaking of control, let us spend a moment on that, because this is something you really need to hear. You are a planner. You anticipate risks. You think ahead. You try to prepare for every possible outcome so that nothing catches you completely off guard. In many ways, this serves you well. But there is a line between responsible planning and the kind of relentless control that quietly exhausts you. And you have crossed that line more often than you probably realize. You take mental responsibility for outcomes that are not yours to manage. You replay past conversations as if you could go back and edit them. You rehearse future scenarios in such detail that by the time they actually happen, you have already lived through them 10 times in your head. You worry about things that have not occurred yet and may never occur. And all of that mental activity consumes enormous energy. Energy that could be directed toward living fully in the present moment. Here is the honest truth. Control is not the same as security. It looks like strength. It feels like protection. But the moment something slips outside your carefully managed plan, you feel shaken because control was your anchor, not trust. And control is a far shakier anchor than most people realize, because life is unpredictable. People are unpredictable, and no amount of planning can account for everything. God is gently inviting you to put something down today. Not your responsibility, not your initiative, not your work ethic, just the weight of outcomes that were never yours to carry. Your role is faithfulness. Your role is integrity. Your role is doing your part with honesty and effort, and then releasing the results into hands far more capable than yours. That is not weakness. That is wisdom. That is what it actually looks like to trust. When you feel the urge to control rising up inside you, notice it. Pause. Take a slow breath. Say quietly to yourself, I do not need to manage this. Then release it deliberately. Your mind will probably resist. It will insist on running through the calculations one more time. Interrupt that pattern. Redirect your thoughts toward trust. You cannot plan your way into peace. Peace is not at the end of a perfect plan. Peace is what happens when you release a problem into God's hands and genuinely trust that He has it. Notice what happens in your body when you try to control everything versus when you release it. When you are gripping tightly, your shoulders are tense. Your sleep is restless. Your patience is short. When you loosen your grip and genuinely entrust things to God, something physical happens. Your body relaxes. Your thoughts quiet. Your interactions with people soften. That is not a coincidence. That is your body responding to alignment. That shift is real, and it is available to you every single day. Let us pause here for a moment, because if this message is reaching your heart today, if you feel God speaking to you through these words, I want to remind you to subscribe. If this is the kind of content that feeds your soul, do not miss the next one. Hit that subscribe button. Let us continue. Now, let us talk about something that has quietly discouraged you more than you realize. You measure progress by visible evidence. You look for open doors, confirmed opportunities, immediate results. You want to see movement. You want proof that something is actually happening. And when the external signs are absent, when doors seem closed and progress seems invisible, you start to wonder if God has forgotten about you. You start to wonder if the blessings you have been hoping for are ever actually going to arrive. But here is what you need to understand. Much of what God prepares for you develops completely out of sight. Seeds do not sprout the day they are planted. Foundations are laid long before structures rise above the ground. Quiet, invisible preparation often feels exactly like delay, but it is not delay, it is deliberate development. The season that feels still is often the season where God is doing some of His deepest work just beneath the surface, where your eyes cannot reach. You have mistaken hidden work for inactivity. Some of the doors that closed in your recent past, the ones that felt disappointing, were not rejection. They were protection. They were God redirecting you away from environments that looked good from the outside but would have drained you from the inside. They were Him saying, not that one. I have something better for you, and it requires the version of you that I am still building. Trust that His restraint has been protective, not punishing. Start asking a different question. Instead of asking why is nothing happening, start asking what is being prepared. That one small shift changes everything. It moves you from a posture of frustration to a posture of expectation. And expectation is powerful. Expectation says, I know something is coming. I may not see it yet. I may not understand the timeline, but I trust the one who is orchestrating it. And I refuse to let impatience convince me that I have been forgotten. You have not been forgotten. You have been positioned. But positioning requires patience. And patience, real patience, is not passive sitting. It is active trust. It is you choosing to remain faithful and steady and present, even when the external signs are minimal. It is you continuing to develop your character, deepen your relationship with God, and invest in the present season even when you cannot see what it is preparing you for. Stay faithful in small responsibilities right now. Refine your character in the daily moments that nobody sees. Strengthen your discipline. Deepen your prayer life. These are not secondary things you do while waiting for the real blessing to arrive. These are the real work. These internal developments are the foundation that the coming blessing will need to stand on. If God released certain things to you before you were ready, it would not be a gift. It would be a weight you were not prepared to carry. His timing is not slow. It is precise. Now let us talk about something practical. You have a pattern of delay that has been holding you back in ways you may not have fully recognized yet. It shows up like this. You feel a clear inner prompting to do something, a conviction to address a habit, an awareness that a relationship needs attention, a nudge toward a decision you have been avoiding. You feel it clearly, and then you tell yourself, not right now. When things settle down, when I feel more ready, when conditions are better. And the moment passes, and another one comes and goes the same way, and slowly, without your permission, delay becomes your default response to God's invitation. But here is what delay actually costs you. Every time you override a moment of genuine conviction without responding to it, your heart adapts. It learns to deflect. It becomes a little more numb to the prompting, a little less sensitive, a little more comfortable with postponing what you know is right. And over time, what once stirred you deeply will barely move you at all. Not because God has stopped speaking, but because you have trained yourself not to listen. God does not want that for you. He wants your heart to remain soft and responsive and alive. He wants you to be the kind of person who moves when He speaks, not in reckless impulse but in faithful obedience, because that responsiveness is what protects you. It is what keeps you aligned. It is what ensures that when important doors open in your future, you are ready to walk through them confidently, instead of hesitating at the threshold, because hesitation has become your habit. So today, choose to break the pattern, not tomorrow, not next week, today. If there is something God has been prompting you toward, take one concrete step right now. Maybe it is an apology you owe someone and have been avoiding. Make the call. Maybe it is a habit that has been chipping away at your integrity. Begin the adjustment today. Maybe it is a commitment you made that you have not been honoring. Recommit to it now. Do not wait for the perfect emotional state or the ideal circumstances. Act in faith. Step forward in trust and let God meet you in the movement. Here is something worth understanding deeply. Small acts of obedience accumulate into major transformation. You are waiting for a grand moment of dramatic change, but most genuine transformation does not arrive in one loud event. It builds quietly through dozens of small, faithful, unseen decisions. The decision to respond instead of delay, the decision to trust instead of control, the decision to choose integrity over comfort. These choices, made consistently over time, become the architecture of a completely different life. And if you are still with me at this point in our conversation, something tells me you are the kind of person who is genuinely hungry for that kind of transformation. The kind that is real, that lasts, that goes all the way down to the roots. So let us keep going, because there is still more that God wants to say to you today. Let us talk about something you may find even more uncomfortable than the previous things we have discussed. Regret, not past regret, though we will touch on that. Future regret. The kind that forms slowly through small decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but accumulate into something significant over time. The kind where you look back years from now and wonder how different things might have been if you had only responded sooner when you had the chance. God sees the trajectories of choices before they fully unfold. He sees how repeated compromise shapes character. He sees how neglected discipline weakens resilience over time. He sees how delayed obedience creates unnecessary detours that cost more time and energy than the obedience itself would have required. You do not always see that clearly in the moment, which is precisely why He is speaking to you about it now, before the cost becomes greater. If you continue ignoring the quiet convictions you feel, you will harden in subtle ways, not dramatically, not overnight, but gradually, the way a river slowly carves a canyon. If you continue tolerating small compromises, they will become the new normal, and what was once uncomfortable will stop bothering you at all. If you continue choosing comfort over growth, you will eventually look back and wish you had been braver when the door was open. That is the regret God wants to spare you from, not through fear, through love. So take an honest look at where you are right now, not where you present yourself to be, but where you genuinely are. If your current patterns continue without change, what will your inner life look like? What will your relationship with God look like? What will the condition of your character be? These are not abstract philosophical questions. They are the most practical questions you can ask yourself, because your future is simply the accumulated result of your present choices. You still have time to choose differently. You are not too far gone. There is no point of no return here. But the easier time to make the adjustment is now, while the patterns are still relatively fresh and the cost of change is still relatively small. Do not assume you will correct course later. Later has a quiet way of becoming never. Take ownership today, right now, in this moment, because this moment is actually yours to shape. But regret is not only about what you did wrong. Sometimes the deepest regret is about what you failed to pursue. The growth you could have experienced but chose comfort over. The intimacy with God that was available but you were too busy to prioritize. The opportunities that required courage and you chose safety instead. You sometimes regret what you did not attempt far more painfully than what you attempted imperfectly. A failed attempt carries a lesson. An abandoned attempt carries a lingering question of what could have been. God wants you to live boldly enough that when you look back on your life, what you feel is gratitude rather than frustration. That does not mean making reckless decisions. It means responding faithfully when growth calls. When you sense God inviting you deeper, say yes. When you sense Him asking you to stretch beyond what is comfortable, lean into that stretch instead of shrinking back. When your schedule is so full that your spirit is being starved, do something about it. Your schedule is a reflection of your priorities. If your days are packed but your soul is thin, something is misaligned, and you can change that alignment starting today. Let us also talk about something that requires a little more delicacy. The voice inside you that you sometimes almost dismiss. That gentle inner prompting that surfaces and then gets drowned out by the noise of your day. Maybe it told you to reach out to someone who has been on your mind. Maybe it convicted you about a pattern you have been tolerating. Maybe it nudged you toward a decision you have been postponing. You felt it clearly enough to notice, and then you nearly brushed it aside because it was not dramatic enough to feel authoritative. That voice is not random. It is not just your conscience doing its thing. It is God guiding you quietly. He does not always communicate in earthquakes and thunder. More often He speaks in impressions, in inner clarity, in the gentle but persistent sense that something specific is being asked of you. Learning to recognize and honor that voice is one of the most important things you can develop in your spiritual life. The more you respond to it promptly, the clearer it becomes. The more you override it, the fainter it feels. Not because God withdraws, but because your sensitivity to His voice decreases when you repeatedly choose to ignore it. Guard that sensitivity. Every time you sense that internal prompting and you respond to it in faith, you strengthen a muscle. You make it easier to hear the next time. You build a track record with God that makes trust feel natural rather than forced. Practice listening intentionally. Set aside a few minutes each day not to speak, but to be still and listen. Silence the external noise. Create margin in your life. When guidance comes in those quiet moments, write it down. Act on it. Do not let it evaporate into the business of your day. Treat those promptings as the gift they are, because they are evidence that God is intimately involved in the details of your life, not just the big headline moments, but the ordinary daily texture of who you are and how you live. Now let us talk about timing, because this is something that God really wants you to understand. You watch the clock, you measure years, you compare your pace to the people around you. You quietly calculate whether you are ahead or behind according to some invisible standard. But God measures differently. He does not measure by the calendar. He measures by readiness. He measures by alignment. He measures by the quiet maturity that is forming in your character through every season you walk faithfully through. There are moments in life when heaven leans in close, when a decision carries more weight than usual, when a simple yes opens a door that has been waiting patiently for your agreement. This is one of those moments. You can feel it, even if you cannot fully articulate it. There is a sense of purposeful urgency in this conversation, not chaotic urgency that pushes you into panic, but the kind of quiet, precise urgency that says, "This matters. Pay attention. Respond." Do not brush that feeling aside. Do not rationalize it away. When you move with God at the right moment, things unfold with a clarity and an ease that strain can never produce. When you move ahead of Him, you strain. When you lag behind out of fear, you stagnate. The sweet spot is responsive, attentive obedience, moving when He says move, resting when He says rest, trusting His pace while participating actively in the process. You have leaned heavily into patience, which in itself is good. But sometimes patience becomes an excuse for hesitation. Sometimes waiting on God is really just fear wearing spiritual language. Examine your heart honestly about that. Is your waiting rooted in genuine trust, or has it become a comfortable shelter for avoidance? If God has been stirring something in your heart, if there is a prompting that has been consistent and persistent and clear, perhaps it is time to stop waiting and start moving. Make the call, send the message, begin the practice, have the conversation, start the thing. Do not overcomplicate this with analysis that never arrives at action. Spiritual timing often reveals itself through simple obedience. You do not need a dramatic sign from the sky. You need a willing heart and one courageous step, and you already have the willing heart. Otherwise, you would not still be here listening. So take the step. At this point, I want to pause and say something directly. If these words have been landing in your heart today, if you have been nodding along because what is being said here is describing your life with uncomfortable accuracy, please take a moment to share this with someone. There is someone in your circle right now who is carrying the same questions you are carrying, who is tired in the same ways you are tired, who is searching for the same kind of real and grounding truth that this message offers. Be the person who sends it to them. Now let us go a little deeper, because God has more to say to you today, and it touches something that is very close to your heart. He wants to talk to you about the space between what you say you believe and how you actually live. Because for many people, including you, there is a gap there, and that gap is the source of a lot of the inner tension you feel without always being able to name it. You pray, and that is genuine. But then you walk away from prayer and still rely almost entirely on your own strategy. You talk about trusting God with your future, and you mean it when you say it. But then when uncertainty rises, you reach for control before you reach for faith. You know that God is your peace. But when anxiety surfaces, you feed it with worry for hours before you think to bring it to Him. You live in two worlds simultaneously, the world of your stated beliefs and the world of your actual daily habits. And the friction between those two worlds wears on you in ways that a few good nights of sleep will never fully fix. God is not exposing this to shame you. He is revealing it so you can close the gap. He is inviting you into integrity, the kind of integrity where your inner life and your outer choices match, where your trust is not just a belief you hold but a reality you live, where your faith is not just something you mention but something that actually governs your decisions. That kind of integrated life is available to you. It does not require perfection. It requires honesty and intention and a daily willingness to choose alignment over autopilot. Where are you half committed right now? Not in a dramatic, obvious way, in the quiet, subtle ways that only you can see. Where have you been going through the motions while keeping your heart slightly protected? Where have you been saying yes with your words and no with your life? Identify it honestly. Do not soften it. Bring that honesty to God and ask Him to help you close the gap. Tell Him specifically, I have been half in and half out in this area. I want to be fully in. Help me get there. That prayer, spoken honestly, begins a movement inside you that external circumstances cannot produce. The gap between belief and behavior closes one honest decision at a time, one moment of choosing trust over control, one moment of choosing obedience over convenience, one moment of bringing your real self to God instead of your edited, presentable version. These moments may seem small, but they are the building blocks of a life that feels genuinely aligned rather than perpetually strained. And here is what happens when that alignment grows. The anxiety begins to quiet, not because your circumstances change overnight, but because your relationship with the one who governs circumstances deepens. The restlessness eases, not because everything is resolved, but because you are no longer trying to resolve everything on your own. The direction clarifies, not because all the answers arrive at once, but because you are walking closely enough with God that each next step becomes visible as you need it. That is the life He designed for you. Not a life free of challenge, not a life where everything always goes smoothly, but a life where you are never facing anything alone. A life where the weight you carry is the right size for your shoulders because God is helping you carry it. A life where the peace you feel is not dependent on circumstances being perfect, but on your connection to the one who is always perfect. That life is not a fantasy, it is an invitation. And it is being extended to you right now in this moment through these words. God also wants to say something about the people in your life and the relationships that have been on your heart recently, because He sees those relationships too. He sees the ones that have been life-giving and the ones that have been quietly draining. He sees the unresolved tensions that are taking up space in your mind and in your heart. He sees the apology that has been sitting unsent for longer than it should have been. He sees the conversation that needs to happen but keeps getting postponed. He sees the boundary that needs to be established, but you have been afraid to draw. Relationships are often where the rubber meets the road in the spiritual life. It is easy to feel peaceful and trusting in quiet moments alone. It is much harder to maintain that peace and trust in the middle of complicated, messy, real human relationships. And yet the quality of your relationships is one of the clearest indicators of the actual state of your inner world. If you want to know whether growth is happening in your heart, look at how you are treating the people around you. God is asking you today to tend to those relationships with intention and courage, not to have every conversation perfectly or to resolve every tension immediately, but to stop avoiding what needs attention. Stop hoping that time alone will fix what honest communication needs to address. Stop treating your comfort as more important than the health of your most important connections. Take the courageous step toward the relationship that needs your attention most right now. If you need to apologize, do not wait for the other person to reach out first. Apologize. If you need to express something honest but vulnerable, find the courage to say it. If you need to establish a boundary that protects your well-being, do it with kindness and without guilt. If you need to extend forgiveness, choose it as an act of your will, even before your emotions fully align with the decision. These relational acts of obedience are not separate from your spiritual life. They are expressions of it. And now, before we arrive at the closing of this message, I want to say one more thing, something that needs to be heard clearly and held on to long after this video ends. God is not asking you to become a completely different person overnight. He is not demanding some impossible standard of flawless discipline and perfect spiritual performance. He is not standing at a distance with a scorecard tallying your failures and waiting for you to earn your way back to his favor. He is a father, a good father, the best father, and what good fathers want for their children is not performance, it is closeness. He wants you near. He wants your honest conversations, not your rehearsed prayers. He wants your ordinary days, not just your emergency moments. He wants the version of you that is tired and searching and unsure as much as he wants the version of you that is confident and clear. He loves all of it, all of you, without condition, without reservation, without limit. The only thing he is asking for today is this: come closer, stay close. Choose him deliberately in the small moments of your ordinary life, not because you have to, not out of obligation or fear, but because you have tasted enough of the alternative living at a distance, running on your own strength, trying to manage everything yourself to know that it is not enough. It was never going to be enough. You were made for more than that. You were made for the kind of life where every morning begins with a quiet conversation with the one who knows your name, where every decision is made in partnership with the one who sees every outcome, where every fear is brought into the light of a love so vast and so unshakable that it makes the fear shrink, where every dream is held in hands far more capable and faithful than your own. That life is available to you. It is not waiting behind some distant door at the end of a long and difficult journey. It is available right now. In the next decision you make, in the next prayer you pray, in the next moment of honest surrender you choose. God is here. He has been here all along. He is not far away and hard to reach. He is close. He is attentive. He is actively involved in your life in ways you may not yet fully see. And he is asking you in this moment, with all the gentleness and all the love of a father who knows you better than you know yourself, to stop drifting, to stop delaying, to stop performing and managing and controlling, and simply come home. Come back to the center. Come back to the place where your soul breathes freely. Come back to the relationship that sustains everything else in your life. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You are exactly where you are, and God meets you exactly there, ready to begin the next chapter of your story. The question is not whether he is willing. He has already answered that question with a love that has never let you go. The question is whether you are willing, whether you will choose in this moment to lean in rather than pull back, to respond rather than retreat, to say yes to the life that has been waiting for your agreement. This is your moment. Receive it. Now, if this message touched your heart today, if something in you shifted while listening, be the reason someone else has their moment today. God bless you, and we will see you in the next message.